All right.
Morning.
Hi. Good morning, Andrea. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm excited to get going today. We're going to learn some cool self-defense stuff.
Awesome. I have my daughters participating if that's okay as well.
That's more the merrier. That's fantastic.
Perfect. Let me get them.
Okay, cool. Got people joining. So we'll give it a few minutes for people to start arriving. Okay. Probably give it until we'll get started around 2 minutes after, just because sometimes people have technical issues when they start to join the Zoom, or just maybe a little late getting moving this morning. I'll give it another minute and then we'll get started. There we go. There we go. Awesome. All right, so we're about 2 minutes in. I'll get started. We might get some people arriving late. That's okay. They'll just hop in. I might have to take a second to let them into the meeting. But basically, I'm Amanda. I own Girl Fight Fitness. We're going to be talking about some self-defense today. We're doing this seminar as a donation-based seminar. So thank you guys so much for donating. 100% of the proceeds that got donated are going to Brittany McFadden, who unfortunately was in an accident, a head-on collision on 890 with a drunk driver, no fault of her own, but that's going to help her on her road to recovery. So I'm very, very thankful that you guys contributed. And also, I know that Kelly's the one I've been talking to on this about this. So she's got other opportunities where if you want to spread the word more, there's bracelets for sale to raise money. There's a post office box where people can submit letters and cards and things like that for Brittany to read. So I'll send that out in the email after the session today with the recording of the session, so that if you want to spread the word more, contribute more, you have the resources to do that. So, all right. So let's just go through some housekeeping stuff before we get into the seminar. I have you all on mute. That's not because I don't love hearing your wonderful voices. It's just because sometimes the background noise gets crazy when I'm trying to talk and when I'm trying to run through the seminar. So that way, you just have you on mute. There is a chat box. So if you do have questions during the session, drop them in the chat box. I'll try to answer them as I go. And there will be opportunities for you to participate while I'll be asking questions. I actually want you to put answers in the chat box. So The other thing too is we're going to do a big Q&A after the session. So anything we don't cover in the next like 45 minutes or so, you can either, like I said, you can drop a question in throughout the session, or you can save it to the end, and I'll hang out here as long as as long as you guys want me to answer any questions that you have after the session. So okay, so let's get started about some self-defense. So we're going to talk about some prevention tactics first. And yes, we are going to get to this is how you fight to protect yourself against somebody. Of course, we're going to get there. But the first part of the session is very important because we're going to be talking about prevention, de-escalation, and then we're going to be talking about what to do if you get into a situation where you have to use your physical, your arms, your legs, your body to protect yourself. The reason we do all that stuff up front is because the best situation possible is to avoid fighting 100% of the time. So if you're doing those things in the beginning, you're probably not going to have to get into a fight or an altercation at all. And I like to think of self-defense as having airbags in your car. So they're great to have them. I'm glad they're there. I just never want to have to use them. So the same thing is true with self-defense. It's a great skill to know for that just in case situation, but it's something I don't want it to ever have to be used. I don't want to ever have to use it if I can avoid it. So let's talk about why prevention is important. And I'm sorry, my dog is being vocal too. He wants to participate as well. All right, so let's talk about why prevention is important. And I've got a whiteboard behind here, so I'm going to try to like rearrange, make sure everybody can see. So we have three main types of threats, or, when we talk about identifying a threat, somebody who's trying to do you harm, there's three main categories that we talk about when we do that. Technically, there's four, but I wouldn't call the fourth, Bradley, no. I wouldn't call the fourth one a threat. The fourth one would be inactive, unidentified. So, and someone who is inactive and not identified for you is not a threat at all because they're not doing anything wrong and you're not even aware they exist. So that's not really a threat. So the three main threat types are inactive, and I'm going to try to clean up my inactive, identified. Let me see how that came out. Kind of. I'll do better. Okay, then there is active, identified. I can't spell either. And then there is active, unidentified. Okay, so we have inactive, identified, active, identified, and active, unidentified. So really that means that three types of threats. One, they haven't done anything yet. They haven't hit you, they haven't punched you, they haven't attacked you yet, but you've identified them as a threat and you're paying attention to them. You're starting to think 3 steps ahead about how to deal with them. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one, active identified, means they're in the process of trying to hurt you. And clearly you've identified that they are, like maybe you saw them 2 seconds before they started to throw a punch. You know that they're a threat, they're coming at you, but it's too late. They already are coming at you. And then the third one is active unidentified. And this is actually the worst one because this means they're already in process of hurting you, but you didn't see it coming. Does that make sense so far, guys? So basically, I'm showing you these different threat types because I want you to understand that this one is something that if we can use prevention to make sure we don't get caught by surprise, sneak attack, things like that, we're going to be much better off because it's going to be very hard to defend against this once somebody already has you in a bear hug, once somebody already has you in a surprise chokehold, that kind of thing. So yeah, so that's, sorry. Had to spray the dog. Okay, so basically that's the type of thing where we want to prevent that, is active unidentified. So prevention is the way where we can not only prevent getting taken by surprise, but we can prevent these two things as well, because we are going to try to avoid fighting if at all possible. So that's kind of why this is important and why I'm going to ask you guys to bear with me while I go through all the prevention steps and awareness and all the things that we're going to talk about up front, the strategies that are going to help keep you safe. Okay, so speaking of that, let's talk about ways to avoid fighting if at all possible. And when I say that too, it's if you identify a threat, I want you to run. That's going to be your number one go-to. Run away, get out of there. Don't hang out and see what happens. Okay. So I want you to take a second, drop in the chat. Things that you can do in your daily life just to be safer in general. So if you can think of something, these are things we learned in kindergarten, things that are tips and tricks and strategies that we've probably known our whole lives, that our dad taught us, our mom taught us, our teachers taught us, those types of things. So I'm going to pay attention to the chat and see what comes in. Yep, travel in groups. Perfect, Kelly. Yes. So there's power in numbers. There's a reason why it's powerful to travel in groups, because if you think about the mindset of the attacker, you're going to be a much easier target if you're by yourself, alone. No one there's there to help you. No one is there to be a witness. No one's there to call the police. Traveling in groups is going to help keep you very safe. Okay, so then Lindsay's got the next one. Lock your door, or be aware of your surroundings. Sorry, and then Michelle's got lock your. We'll talk about lock your doors in a second. My thing jumped down. Be aware of your surroundings. Excellent, Lindsay. So I don't know if you guys have kids who do this, or you do this yourselves, but you're walking around like this and you're not paying attention to what's going on. Always be aware of your surroundings. I don't want your head down in your purse. I don't want your head down in your cell phone. Always be looking what's going on around you, because when you are not paying attention, that's when somebody's going to sneak up on you and catch you off guard. So always be aware of your surroundings, not just knowing what's going on around you. If someone's following you too closely, also be aware of where your exits. Where are you going to go if you have to go to get help immediately? Where's is there a person of authority, a store clerk, a manager, a police officer? Know these things going in. Know where the nearest police station is in your town. That's something that it's kind of scares me, how many people don't know where the police station is in their town. So know where the police station is in your town. So if you're being followed in your car or something like that, get to the police station. Don't be stopping and going home. Don't be pulling over. Don't do any of that. And we'll talk a little bit more about what to do if you're being followed in a second. But okay, Michelle, lock your doors. Yes, so lock your doors, please, please, please. And I don't know if some of you who live here in Scotia, there's been a lot of vehicle break-ins, and it's been people just not locking their car doors. But lock your doors, especially when you're inside the car, inside your house. Always be locking your doors. Don't just invite that invitation. I know we like to think that, oh, nobody's going to do anything. You know, people are good by their nature. There's just some bad people out there. So just lock your doors. Don't take any chances. Yep, Andrea, always be aware of your surroundings, just like Lindsay said. Absolutely. So yeah, so there's some common things here. Common things are awareness, being aware, looking what's going on around you. Don't be afraid to be paranoid, for lack of a better way to say it. So if you think somebody is following you too closely, don't be afraid to, well, first of all, don't go to your car if you think you're being followed. If you're like leaving Walmart and you've got all your groceries and your purse slung over your shoulder, you're probably not going to be able to react very quickly anyway. So if you think you're being followed to your car, turn right around, go right back to the front of the store, and let that person that you think is following you figure out what they're doing before you even attempt to go back to your car. If you start to see the same face over and over and over again, if you start to feel unsure that, you know, this person is stalking you or not stalking you, go to the front customer service desk. If you're in a store, go, if you're walking on the sidewalk and streets, go into a shop and ask the shop clerk for help. There's nothing wrong with it just being a harmless thing. There's actually a tactic that a lot of attackers use with women where they prey on our natural guilt for not wanting to be helpful, where we want to help people. We don't want to be seen as rude. We have that empathy to us where they'll prey on that, you know? So don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to shut somebody down. Don't be afraid to be rude. Frankly, if a guy, like a 6'5", 300-pound guy is asking me for help and I'm 5'2", there's something wrong there. How am I going to help this guy? You know what I mean? Like I don't have any expertise that I can use to help that guy. So and that Ted Bundy, who was a famous serial killer, used that tactic a lot, where he'd pretend he was injured. Hey, can you help me carry my books to my car? And then that's all she wrote. That was it for a lot of those women. So definitely be aware of your surroundings. Don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to be paranoid. If you think you're being followed out, like in a store, out in public, there's a tactic you can use where, if you're walking like in a populated area, I wouldn't do this in an alley or anything. If you think you're being followed, I'm like freaking bold if you're by yourself. But if you are in an area that's highly populated, you can pretend to tie your shoe, or you can pretend that you dropped something on the ground. And what you're going to do is you're going to stop, bend over, pretend you're tying your shoe, pretend you're picking something up, and look over your shoulder and see if they stopped. Because if they stopped, chances are they are following you because they're trying to keep pace with you. If they keep going, and this is why I say do it in a more populated area where it's going to be obvious if they try to grab you as they pass. But if they keep going, they're probably not following you. Because I don't know about you, you don't want to just come up and smack somebody in the face if they didn't do anything to you right there. So you kind of have to determine that first. If you're in your car, if you think you're being followed in your car, do not go home. Do not go to your destination. Do not pull over. Keep driving. And what I want you to do is make continuous turns in one direction. You pick left or right. I like left turns because I feel like it gives me a little time to think, like I have to wait and, figure things out. Make continuous turns in one direction because eventually you're making a circle. And the only person who's also going to be making circle driving their car is somebody who's following you. So that could be a test to see if you are being followed. If you do confirm you are being followed, like I said, don't go home. I want you to get the police on the phone right away. Call 911, get a dispatcher on the line. They'll send police to you, or they'll probably direct you to the nearest police station. Just don't get out. And when you get to a police station, don't get out of your car. Stay in your car. Let them come out to you. The police come out to you so that they can handle whoever it is that's following you. Okay. I don't know who would follow you into a police station, but they are crazy enough to follow you in the first place. So I don't know. So those are just some strategies to stay safer. If someone pulls up to you, you're walking on the sidewalk, you're walking your dog, someone pulls up to you in a car, keep distance from the car. Don't get close to that car. There's no reason why you have to be right up against that car window to talk to somebody. And if they try to get out of the car or try to approach you, that's your cue to run and bolt and get out of there. Trying to think what else. Basically, the safety tips we were taught when we were little: try not to go places at night, try not to go where it's dark or not lit. If you're walking, if you need to walk to your car, have someone walk with you and then drive them back to where they're supposed to be. So that way, they don't have to walk back by themselves. Just the stuff that we've known for our entire lives to stay safer. But sometimes what happens is we let our guard down. And that's the important thing too, is to not let that guard down. That one time could be all it takes for somebody to swoop in and use that opportunity. When you get in your car, lock all doors. That's a habit you should get into immediately. Don't wait for your shift to lock your car doors. As soon as you get in, lock all. That should be an instantaneous response. Now, when you're approaching your car, check around your car. Walk your perimeter of your car, look underneath your car, look in your back seat, look in your trunk. If you have a hatchback, I should say, I don't know if somebody would get into your trunk. You can look in your trunk if you want, but just make sure there's nobody in your car waiting for you. And then once you get in, lock all the doors. Okay, so just kind of a general overview of the things that we should be doing to keep safer in general. Now let's talk about how to identify if you should fight, because that's very important too, where there are some things in life that just aren't worth getting into a fight over. I'll give you an example. Like, I don't care how tough you think you are, how much you learned from the seminar today, and you're walking around like, I'm a badass now, I could take anybody. Like, I don't want you to be overconfident, because like I said, I don't want to have to use this stuff if I don't have to. So if I can avoid fighting, I'm going to, because you don't know with your attacker, they're usually going to be a mystery to you. You don't know this person. You don't know how. You can kind of eyeball maybe how strong they are by their height and their weight, but really you don't know how skilled they are, how strong they are, if they're a black belt in jujitsu, if they have a weapon. That's a very important one, because sometimes people are like, yeah, if somebody tries to rob me or ask me for my keys, I'm not going to give it to them. And then all of a sudden a weapon comes out if you refuse them. So then when a weapon comes out, it changes the scenario entirely. It becomes much harder for you to stay safer and protect yourself. So definitely you have to determine, when is it appropriate to fight, or is this an opportunity where we get robbed and live to fight another day type of situation? So if someone's asking for your keys, do you think you should give it to them, give your keys up, or do you think you should fight them over the keys? Any ideas in the chat? Hang out for a second. Anybody guessing? It's okay. All right. So yeah, there, Andrea, I love it. Throw the keys. Yes. So first simple answer to that is give them the keys rather than fight them over the keys. But then Andrea has an excellent point there. Don't just hand them the keys. Toss the keys underhanded, because that way it's a little more, okay, like gentle, passive, makes them feel in control. And don't toss them at them. Toss them off to the side onto the ground, because what they have to do at that point to get the keys is pick it up. And when they're turning, bending, picking it up, you're out of there. Running, turning, screaming, making lots of noise. Don't be afraid to project. Noise travels much more than, they're going to hear you before they can see you, especially if you're in a congested area. So make lots of noise. You never know who could be listening, who could call for help, who could come to your aid, who could get the police on the phone. So yes, throw the keys, throw the wallet. So if it's something that can be replaced, your wallet, your credit cards, your iPhone, your suit, your shoes, I don't know. I don't care what it is. If it's something that can be replaced, you give it to them and hope they go away so you don't have to fight this person over it. Now, if it's something that can't be replaced, your health, your safety, they're trying to take you somewhere you don't want to go, like those types of things. Those are the situations where you should make the decision to fight back. Fighting is an individual decision as well. I also want to talk about that too, because this is where we kind of get into the legal standpoint of, should I fight? Should I not fight? I kicked some guy in the groin and now he can't have kids anymore and he's suing me. Everybody has to make that decision on their own. I can't guarantee that someone won't sue you, even if it's self-defense. They might try. Anybody can try anything in this country. Will they win? Probably not, but it is a possibility. However, when I like to think of the situation, what I would do in that situation, I'm going to tell you what I would do. I would rather be alive and worried about being sued than otherwise, so that's kind of the way I make that decision. But yeah, so the other way to kind of protect yourself against any kind of legal repercussions in that situation is to make sure you're covered by not using excessive force, which means that if you do get into a fight and you're defending yourself, stop as soon as they're not a threat anymore. That does not mean just because they tried to steal your purse that you can kick them in the head until you feel like you want to stop. That doesn't mean that you can do that. Once they're no longer a threat anymore, meaning they're either trying to escape or they're unconscious on the ground or they're not moving or they're just not, when you have the opportunity to withdraw, that's when you have to withdraw. So the other thing too is making sure no matter how small an altercation is, you call the police and get a police report on file because you want your side of the story on file before theirs gets on file. So those are two ways that you can help safeguard against that. It's kind of those little legal technicalities important to talk about. But let's then return back to talking about when to fight. So if it is a situation where you need to protect your safety, protect your health, protect your well-being, protect a loved one, a child who's with you, those are the situations where you can decide to fight, and it would be worth it to do so in those cases. Does everything make sense so far, guys? Do you have any questions? If you do, you can throw them in the chat. Okay, so and if one or two questions pop up, I'll answer. I'll pause and answer them. But all right, so now let's talk about what to actually do when you're in a situation where you've been paying attention to your surroundings. You've identified somebody that maybe potentially is out to cause you harm, where they look a little shady or they've just been following you everywhere, and you just detect, you get a bad feeling. The feeling that you get in the pit of your stomach is something that you should listen to. That's a survival instinct. There's instincts that we pick up on unconsciously that we don't even know we're picking up on. But those are the things when you talk about people who said their hair stood up on the back of their neck or they just had a bad feeling. Those are the types of things to pay attention to because your body doesn't lie. My body picks up on little micro details that you might not even be aware of. So let's say you get that impression with this person. You don't want to go up and just slap them because they technically didn't do anything yet. So you're at that point, you're the aggressor. You're the person who's in the wrong. So what you kind of have to do is assess, are they trying to hurt you? Are you in a situation where you can't get away from them? So if someone starts to approach you and you feel threatened, I want you to, number one, take a step back from that person and keep distance between you, because distance is going to be your best friend before an attack happens, because that buys you time to think. So keeping that distance, if they are 20 feet away from you, they can't punch you from there. They can't kick you from there. You're safe temporarily until they close that distance. So the time it's going to take them to close that distance is your time to process what's going on, think about your next step, and strategize how you're going to deal with it. So when someone comes towards you and you feel threatened, take a step back. I want you to put your hand up and I want you to say loudly, stop, don't come closer, loud, project. Anything you say, it doesn't necessarily be stop, don't come closer. It could be cut it out, back off. It could be whatever comes out of your mouth in that moment, whatever you want to say. give them a warning, say, I'm going to protect myself, come closer, or I'm going to smack the you-know-what out of you, like whatever it is that you are going to feel comes out of you in that moment. And when you say, it's not as important what you say as how you say it. So you don't want to say, don't come near me. Okay, please. No, you don't want to be meek and meager and feel, even if you feel scared, even if you feel that you're intimidated, you have to pretend, you have to channel your inner actress and pretend that you are, stop, don't come closer, I'm going to defend myself, get lost, get out of here, I'm going to call the cops, whatever it is that you're going to say with authority, with volume. And the other, we don't just want to be loud because we want to intimidate this person, but we want to be loud so maybe other people hear and maybe other people intervene before anything builds or anything happens. So deliver that warning, and that warning also comes in handy too, because if you're trying to evaluate if that person is trying to hurt you or not, if you like, let's reverse roles. Like, let's say you start coming towards me to give me my maybe I drop my car keys and you're trying to come towards me and I go to you, stop, don't come closer. You're not going to keep coming if you're not trying to hurt me. If anything, you're probably going to back up and be like, hey, crazy lady, you left your keys, I'm trying to bring them to you, I don't know what your deal is, but I'm just going to put them here, I'm going to go away now. So that might be, that's essentially your test to see, is this person really trying to hurt me, or did I misread the situation? It's because if they're trying to bring you keys, I'm glad I didn't hit them in the face, at that point. So but if it's your test, it's your barometer. That warning is your test to see, is this person really trying to hurt me? If they keep advancing, that's where you need to decide, are you going to fight or are you going to run? Now, making that choice, 10 times out of 10, if you can run, you should be running. And that's going to be dependent on, do you have enough time to run before they're on top of you? Do you have an escape route? Is it blocked? Is it not blocked? Is there a wall or a doorway? Those types of things. Ideally, those are things you're aware of when you're being safe, when you're being aware of your surroundings. I challenge you guys to start doing this no matter where you go, whether it's a restaurant, a school, whatever. Know where the exits are, know where the doors are. Even if you're just going to a restaurant one time, sit down, understand, here are my exits, here's where I'm going to go if something happens. This is my getaway plan. It sounds like a lot of things, but as you start to get into a pattern of doing it each time you go somewhere, it's going to get easier and easier to do. So, but you might not have that escape. If you do, 10 times out of 10, take it. Run, make lots of noise, call the police. So then, now let's say you can't escape. You've given your warning. They're still coming. You have no other option but to defend yourself physically. So this is where we get into, what are the things to focus on? How do we make sure that we get out of that situation as quickly as possible? And to do that, we have to use tactics and strategies that aren't necessarily fair fighting, because like I said, I'm 5'2". It's not going to be a fair fight with somebody who's twice my height, twice my weight, maybe has more skill than me. If I'm trying to play by boxing rules or MMA rules, I'm not going to win that fight at all. There's a reason why they have weight classes in boxing and MMA. So in order for me to have the best chance of going home safely, I am going to have to fight dirty, use strategies that are illegal in these types of fighting sports, because they provide such an extreme advantage to one side versus the other. And those are really the only ways I can safely get out of that situation with somebody who's much stronger than me, or much more skilled than me, or much heavier than me. I have to use those out of necessity. So we're going to use those kind of dirty fighting strategies that I'm going to go through today. And following the basic plan of, we are not there to do 5 rounds, 2 minutes each, got the fisticuffs up. This is not what that is. This is, let's get it done quick, put them down, get out of there. And it doesn't have to be this person's on the ground, this person's unconscious. It could be one kick between the legs, they're bent over, and before they recover and pop up, you might be turning and running out of there. Okay, that might be all it takes to get out of there. You want to get out there as quickly as possible. So here are our three objectives when we have to approach any fight. So one is, we already and my board is falling down. Okay, so avoid if possible So we talked about this a little bit already, a lot of it already. So if at all possible, I want you to avoid fighting, okay? So then if you can't avoid it, do not stop, okay? If you can't avoid fighting, do not stop until you can safely get away. That means don't throw one punch and go, oh, just kidding, whoopsie. Because what happens is once you make that determination to fight, you're telling your attacker that you are a fighter. So at that point, let's say it's a kidnapping situation. They've got you by the arm. They're trying to drag you somewhere. They feel like they have the upper hand at that point. If you start fighting, they're going to treat you differently if you stop. So if you fight, kick, punch, and then you stop, that's when they might restrain your hands. That might be when you're put at an even further disadvantage because they're going to treat you differently now that they know you're a fighter. So once you decide to make that decision to fight, do not stop. Kick, punch, scream, bite, whatever you have to do. I'm going to show you strategy, so hopefully you don't have to resort to biting because biting is just a messy thing to do. But do what you need to do to get out of that situation. All right, and then the third strategy is run. And like I said, as soon as you have the opportunity, as soon as your gut says run, you get out of there, whether it's after 1 or 2 hits and you have that window of opportunity. Now, I kind of want to go back to the do not stop thing again, because there's a very important mental thought process we're going to go over very quickly. So I'm going to clear my whiteboard off. There's basically, when we're talking about any kind of action-reaction process with the brain, there's 4 main things that your brain has to go to, 4 main stages in order to react to something happening outside. So it's, you have to perceive it happening. So you actually have to visually see it, right? Then you have to analyze what it is, okay? Figuring it out. So you see something, you have to analyze, what is this? Is it a projectile? Is it a hand? Is it, what is it? Then you have to formulate a plan. Okay, so you have to figure out how you're going to react to that. And then you have to execute. So these are the things. So you have to actually tell your body to do that. You have to tell your body to actually do the thing that you figured out. All of these things, and it doesn't matter what it is, what stimulus it is, your body has to do it every single time you're exposed to something. Perceive, analyze, formulate, execute, every single time. It takes milliseconds to go through that process, but your body still has to do it. Now, when I said do not stop, it wasn't just about, the one thing was, telling your attacker you are a fighter. You want to play that card when you know you're going to use it and keep using it. But this is also the other reason why you do not stop, is because every time you hit and cause pain to that person, you bounce them back to the top of the process. Okay, so what we are creating by continuing to attack is creating this endless loop where this person's trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And what that does is buy you time to think about, okay, can I knock this person unconscious? No. Is there an exit over there? No. Okay, all right, what am I going to do next? How am I going to, okay, this isn't working, I'm going to switch to this. You're buying yourself time, because if they're always behind the 8 ball, so to speak, about what you're doing, you're going to have the upper hand in that situation. Does that make sense so far, guys? Okay. All right. So now let's get into the actual punching, hitting, things like that. And I want you to think about, and so before I get into the actual maneuvers, it means it's meaningless unless you know when it's an appropriate time to use each one. And what we are talking about there, what we have to talk about there is 2 key things you need to consider when you are looking at fighting somebody. And these are things that people don't really talk about in self-defense. So range and targets. Okay. The reason why these things are important, range, do you think it matters how far away you are from somebody, whether you kick them or punch them or whatever? Yeah, it absolutely does. So I could show you the best wrist lock that on the planet, but if you're 10 feet from that person, that's not really going to be very effective until you close that distance. I also like to kind of, when I'm doing like a live seminar with people, I like to joke, do you think it's going to be faster and take someone off guard if you do a quick, swift kick, or if you close the distance by running at you, them with your fist up going, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get, like, they're going to be able to duck that. They're going to see that coming. You're going to be able to take them off guard if you're using the right thing. So we have 3 main distances here. Luckily, I have three different color markers. So this is us. I get into my wonderful, wonderful drawing skills here. And then here's our attacker. Okay. So this would be what I would consider, and this is a little longer than what I would consider long range, but this is approximately long range. Okay. So this is basically kick territory. And imagine just a little bit closer than that. I exaggerated a little bit, but basically the length of your leg, that would be long range, long enough to kick, too long to punch or strangle or something like that. Okay. So this is your long range. So immediately, by process of elimination, you know you're limited to things that you can do with your legs, because anything else you would have to close that distance to get in there. Okay. So then we talk about medium range. So here's medium range. So we're moving up a little bit. Okay. So this is medium. Okay. Medium, also called mid-range, synonymous. So this is, oh, they have no arms. There's their arms. So this is punch, kick. I can still kick. It's just going to be with the shin bone connecting instead of the foot. It's not, you're going to have to back up to connect with your foot. But this would be mostly punching, full range punching. Okay. And then you get in to close range right here. So this is where we get into elbows, knees, eye gouges, things where you really have to be on top of somebody in order to do these. Okay. So just an example, going back to our, 3 types of threats, we have the active identified or the inactive identified, those two where you've already seen it and it might be in the process of happening or about to happen. You're a little safer in that situation because you have more, ideally more range, because you've kept distance, because if you've identified that threat, you're keeping away from them. So you're going to have more time to react. You're also going to have different things to do as your reaction. Kicks are going to be your primary defense here. Whereas if we talk about close range, just to compare, this might be that active unidentified threat, that surprise attack. Somebody jumps up behind you and grabs you by the head or something. Okay. Those situations are going to be where you're going to rely on elbows, knees, donkey kicks behind the groin, maybe a backwards headbutt. We'll get into that in a second. But those are types of things where you have to consider, how close am I to this person? What attack makes sense to do? It doesn't make sense to start kicking if you're not close enough, or punching when you're not close enough, and vice versa. If you don't have enough room to punch, you're going to have to do something else. So that's a very important thing to consider. The second thing to consider is the targets. So there are some places of the body that are going to cause a lot more pain than others. So let me wipe this down and we'll talk about the targets next. All right. So when we're talking about targets, and this is where I'm going to kind of ask you guys to type in the chat what you think is a good target. And we've got key ones that we're going to talk about today. Anything can be a target. And there are situations where you're probably going to try anything. You're probably going to throw. You might not have a lot of options. You might not be able to see your attacker. So you're just going to have to throw punches and kicks and elbows and whatever it is out there and hope it sticks. Okay. But if you do have the luxury of picking your targets and picking where you're going to cause damage, there are going to be places that are going to be much more effective than others. And those places are going to be places with very little protection, that cause a lot of pain, because remember, pain is going to be what bounces them over and over through that thought process, keep them in that continuous loop cycle. It's going to cause them a lot of pain, and hopefully it can either take away a sense, take away a body function. It might have that bonus effect of disbalancing them or something like that. So what do you think are some effective targets to hit? Just put them in the chat when you have a second. Kidneys, groin. Yes, definitely, Kelly, groin. Now, kidneys can be good, but the problem is we can't visually see the kidney, right? It's inside our body. So where is the kidney? Who, I have trouble to having adults identify where kidney, liver, intestines are in an anatomy chart sometimes. So when we can actually visually see the targets, it's going to be much easier to hit them rather these tucked in away. We can't really know where they are. So groin, yes, the groin is the one that everybody's always told us to hit. And it just hurts. It just does. You could be a man, you could be a woman. It just hurts. So ways to hit the groin. So let me actually get my stick figure on here so we can see the targets. All right, so we got the groin. Ways to hit the groin: kicks and knees. And what do you think is going to determine which one you throw? It's the proximity, the range. So if you are long range, you're going to throw a kick, just like you're kicking a soccer ball, right up between the legs. If you're closer, knee to the groin, just knee right up there. And when you're throwing these things, put every ounce of strength you got into it. You want to hit them hard, and it doesn't take a lot to cause damage. I actually, in sparring practice one time, nicked some guy, and he was wearing a cup. I just nicked it. I didn't even hit him hard, and he was down for like 3 minutes. So it doesn't take a lot to do it, but when you do it, throw everything you got into it. So yes, groin. Eyes, absolutely, Michelle. So the eyes. Thing about the eyes is there is very little protection on those things with how important they are in our body. I still don't understand anatomy sometimes. It's like they're so important to us, and they just have these little flaps to protect. There's no muscle, there's no fat. It's just these little skin flaps protecting our eyeballs. So, so very little protection. Now, this is a target where you do want to consider, is it a good, appropriate target to go for? Because I see Kelly has her camera on, so I can see she's wearing glasses. So maybe not an appropriate target to go for her, because I'm not actually going to be able to get at the eyeball, probably going to damage myself more so. But eyes they cause pain. They'll cause a reaction where, I don't know if you guys have ever had a bug get trapped in your eye and you kind of have to do this just involuntarily. Even that, just flicking the eye can cause that reaction. And they're going to take away vision. So if your attacker can't see you, chances are they're not going to be able to run after you. So the way to get at the eye, I don't want you to do the Three Stooges. I don't want you to do the Kill Bill. No, we're not doing that. I want you to keep your fingers wide and loose, okay? Wide, because instead of just trying to poke a very small target with a very small device, you are going to have 4 or 5 chances to hit that. Keep in mind, your attacker is not just going to stand there and go, okay, hit me in the eyes. They're going to be moving. They're going to be moving. So you need as much chance as possible to hit those eyes. So when you do that, keep the fingers loose and wide. Wide so you maximize the surface area, you have more chance to actually hit the target on a moving target. And then loose, because if you miss and hit here or hit somewhere hard, your fingers will spring back and you won't bust your fingers or jam your fingers. You want to keep your weapons as healthy as possible because you don't know how long you're going to have to continue to fight. So keep the fingers loose and it's a little flick in and out. Aim for the eyes. And what happens is when you keep the fingers loose, the velocity of what you're doing creates a whip reaction with the fingertips when you extend. So when I come out and in like that, there's a whip. If I slow it down, comes out, flicks, whips. So it's almost like bing, it's almost like that to somebody's eyeball, and that could scratch a cornea. That could, even if it causes that oh my gosh, a bug is in my eye reaction, that could be just enough time that you need to get away. So so that's how we want to go after the eyes. All right, so what else? We got eyes, nose. Yes, Michelle, nose. Okay. So nose is next. So nose is a great target because we can actually visually see it. It's right here. It's basically extended off the body, almost begging to be hit. And it causes a lot of pain. You can break the nose very easily. And it might trigger a sinus reaction where it clouds your vision so that you can actually, obstruct that person's sight temporarily. Or permanently, or you're not sticking around to see if you hurt them for life. You are getting out of there as soon as you can. You're not hanging out going, "How are you okay? How are you?" No. As soon as you do it, you're out of there. So to hit the nose, we're not going to punch the nose. The reason why we don't want to punch the nose is you're probably going to get in one good punch. You're probably going to break your hand, and then your hand is useless for the rest of the fight. Now, you could still use the side of your palm to chop or whatever, but again, we want to try to keep those hands as healthy as possible. Now, with that said, if you start to punch, don't go, oh, wait, no, Amanda said do it this way. Instead, like, you've lost your window of opportunity at that point. It's almost like stealing a base in baseball. If you're doing it, you got to commit to it. I would rather you follow through, hit that person, worry about fighting with a broken hand than doing the, oh, wait, well, no, okay. So, but if you have the choice and you have the foresight to think of it, I want you guys to feel the heel of your palm. You feel how hard that is. That is a hard surface that you're going to jam into somebody's nose. And when you do it, you're going to be doing with a slight upward strike. So up, so it comes up like this. Now, that might happen organically if your attacker is higher than you or taller than you. But if they are a little bit your same height or a little bit shorter, just duck a little bit before you go and then swoop up like that. So palm strike. Heel of the palm. The other, like, heel of the palm is important because you don't want to hit here and just be like slapping them like boop, boop on the nose. You want to actually destroy that nose, okay? All right, nose, yes. Throat, Kelly. Oh, you guys aren't messing around. You know this stuff. Okay, throat. Okay. So the throat, what is important about the throat? Breathing, airway, right? If that person can't breathe, they don't care. It's an involuntary response. It's survival. If they can't breathe, they don't care what's going on with you. They're going to be worrying about getting air at that point. And again, you're not sticking around to see if they're going to suffocate. You're out of there. If they did something that they deserve to get hit that way, you're not, whatever happens. You get out of there, you go get help. So throat. Now I want you all to take your hands, make an L shape. And because everyone does this anyway, just take a second and just go here with your throat. Just apply a little pressure. That doesn't feel good, does it? It's uncomfortable, right? Now, if that's coming full force into your throat, that's going to be a lot more uncomfortable, if not totally painful, and cause you a lot of damage. So the main way to do it is you make that L, and same thing, come out and in, aim for the throat, anywhere on the throat. Don't get picky with it because, again, that person's going to be moving. Wherever you connect is fine. Out and in, and realize we are doing out and in strikes. Everything is eyes, nose, throat. Excuse me. It's all the same motion, right? It's just what's on the end of the hand and where it's going on the body. And it's very important that we're doing it that way because I want you guys to be able to remember this stuff. Because if I teach you throat maneuver number 436, you're probably not going to be able to retain these things when you're stressed, when you're under a high pressure situation, when you're afraid for your life, and you're trying to figure out what the heck to do. So this stuff has got to be really easy. And the other part of that is pull your hand back afterwards because you don't want to get grabbed. So don't just punch and leave it hanging out there, in and out quickly. Okay. Keep your hands really close to your body. Okay. So we talked about throat. Knees, yes. Okay, so let's talk about knees. Face is like, nose. There's other parts of the face too that will, one other, but let's talk about knees. So knees, there is a reason why knee injuries are one of the top sports-related injuries, and it's because your knee is a hinge joint. It's only designed to go in one direction. It's not like your hip or your shoulder where you have full mobility. It is a hinge joint, only designed to go in one direction. So all we have to do is hit it in a way that puts it out of that direction. So whether it's hitting it from the side as a side kick, whether it's stomping down forward on it from a front kick perspective and just like pushing you're kicking a door open but coming down on somebody's knee, that's going to put their knee in an opposite position. It might tear tendons. It might, do a lot of damage. You might break the knee. You might have patellar damage there. So you're not sticking around to see if they can't walk anymore. You're getting out of there because the good news about hitting the knee is if they can't walk, they're probably not chasing you at that point. Okay. Knees are a great target. All right. Now, Andrea, temple, something about the temple where this is a hard part. This is the skull. Okay. And again, the temple area is kind of very small. And sometimes people don't know where it is on it's kind of like asking where the solar plexus is. People are like, I don't know where that is, So I would say if you, rather than hit the temple or hit something really hard, if I could hit the nose, if I could hit the throat, if I could hit the eyes, that's going to be much more damaging with less stress on me, less stress on my body. So not a bad idea. And if that's the only thing you have in that moment, definitely hit it. But I am saying if you can like pick a better target, if you have the luxury to do that, you're better off with something where you can cause them more damage for less damage to you. And same thing with the ribs. The ribs, again, if you can go for the ribs, I would say that would be the best situation to hit the ribs is if you're in close quarters, someone's behind you, and you have that quick elbow to the ribs where you can do it. But if you can pick the knees, if you have the luxury to pick the nose or something that's going to cause a lot more damage to that person, actually stunt their thought process in that moment rather than knock their wind out for a second, I think that would be a better target to go for. But there is a scenario we'll talk about in a little bit where it's kind of the oh crap scenario. What do I do now? Because I don't have a lot of options. So that is one where we'll use that. All right. So then the last one is one that people don't usually talk about, but it's ears. Now, the thing about ears, I'll just give them another one because it feels weird giving them one ear. So the ears cause a lot of pain. I don't know if anyone here has had their eardrum broken before, but it hurts a lot. And unfortunately, it's very easy. Well, fortunately in this scenario, unfortunately for everyday life, it's very easy to bust the eardrum. So this is one where none of this stuff should be done unless you really mean to hurt somebody. So again, this is if I had kids on here, I'd be like, this is not for horsing around with your brother or your sister. For us, this is not horsing around with your spouse or significant other. This is stuff only meant to do to be done for your own protection. Now, the ears specifically, even if you think you're being safe, you can bust somebody's eardrum really quick just by trying to do it safely. So do not do this unless you really don't care if you're breaking somebody's eardrum. So you're going to take your hands and you're basically going to come around and just clap, but you're going to clap over their ears. You're going to hold your hands like cups so that you're trapping the air. And when you come full force across somebody's ears like that, you're basically sending air through forcefully, busting the eardrum. And ears are tied to equilibrium, so that's balance, that's control. They might not be able to run after you after you do this. So this is another maneuver too that you can use as a combination. So if you kick between the legs and they bend over, but they're starting to get up before you feel like you can run away, you can come down with a single ear clap on that ear as they're coming up, and that might be enough to put them down so you have more time to run. So with that said, that's where you start to get into combinations, because these are the key targets. These are the ones that I really want you to focus on, because they're going to be the ones that give you the most chance possible to get away. So ears, eyes, nose, throat, knees, groin. Okay. These are the ones that are going to be like kind of your money targets. Now, let's talk about, first, let's talk about what do you do if you hit the groin, nothing happens? You hit it again. You try it again, but it gets to the point, if you're hitting it and nothing is happening, maybe they put on a titanium cup that morning, I don't know, then you have to change your target. So that's why I'm not saying the whole self-defense seminar is not how to hit the groin for 45 minutes. This is, so you might need the flexibility of different options. Like we talked about, if your attacker's wearing glasses, don't hit the eyes, but you have the nose, the ears, the throat, knees. If you know your basic targets, and you know how to hit them, and you know what ranges to be in where you can hit them the most effectively, you're going to be able to adapt in the middle of a fight. And that's much more valuable than if I showed you kind of like, when I compare that to like Taekwondo katas or forms or karate, it's like those forms that are like, like position 1, position 3, like it's almost like a choreographed dance. And it's wonderful if the choreography flows in a way that supports the form. So that's why I'm not teaching you guys, do this exact wrist lock, do this exact thing. I would rather give you the tools you need to troubleshoot the fight yourself, because if you follow general targets, use the principles of range and targets together, if something's not working, you're going to be able to adapt on the fly. So again, if you're hitting the nose and it's not working, go for the ears. Go up with the knee to the groin, mix it up, keep it going until you have that opportunity to get away. All right, so then let's talk about one scenario that we kind of mentioned where we're going to have to hit at anything. And that would be like a bear hug or a grab scenario. So this would be one of those surprise attack situations. And if we had more time, I'd get much more into a lot of different types of surprise attacks and things like that. And I'll leave some time at for Q&A afterwards. So if you do want to get into those, we can. But you know, I could go on for 2 hours about all this stuff. But let's talk about like the surprise, the bear hug attack, where it's like your arms are trapped. Actually, I'm going to draw because you guys can't see so well. And this will be a good test of my art skills today. So, bear hug scenario where your attacker has their arms around you, okay? And your arms are pinned down, okay? So this is a situation, you guys are at extremely close range here. You're this way, you're facing that way, attacker's facing this way. One of the two big disadvantages in this situation are, number one, your arms are pinned down, so you're very limited with what you can and can't do. And number two, you can't see your attacker, okay? Because anything you do with what the legs or whatever you have is you're going to be guessing, you're going to be guessing. So this is a situation where you can't hit the eyes physically. You can't, you can kind of, I'll tell you in a second how you can get at the nose, but some of these targets are just not accessible. So what can you do in this situation? So if you start to think about it, you have your legs. So what targets, how can you get at that groin? Because the groin is still here. So donkey kick backward, kind of like that back kick, donkey kick. What else do you have? You have a toe. And one of the reasons I didn't talk about toe earlier is because, let me see if I can get the toe in without, there we go. The reason I don't talk about toes earlier is because you have to be in extremely close range to get at them. And if you're better off keeping your distance and kicking from a distance, you're better off doing that than getting in really close, because if you're close, they can grab you. Okay. So, but if you are already by default, you can stomp on that toe. Okay. All right. And then what else do you have? So the other thing that you have in this situation, groin kick, toe, you can't really use your arms. You do have your headbutt. And I want to be very clear. Again, this is something I didn't talk about earlier because I don't want you to use your head as a weapon unless it's absolutely necessary. When we talked about breaking your hand, throwing a punch and breaking your hand, you can still fight with a broken hand. If you headbutt somebody and knock yourself unconscious or damage yourself or give yourself a concussion, it's game over. That's your control center. You can't do anything if you damage your head. So that's why I don't want you to use your head normally as a weapon in that other scenario. But in this scenario, this is one of the only weapons you do have. And the second thing is that this kind of a reverse headbutt is very different than a front headbutt, where I just imagine you take somebody's head, you go clunk, and you both go down. Like, that's not what we want to do. With this scenario, you've got the back of your head, the hard back of your head, that you're actually pushing into the soft part of somebody's face. That's going to cause them a lot more damage than it's going to do to you. And like I said, it is one of the only options you have in this scenario. So definitely headbutt, groin, toe. Now, if you can get to the point where you're causing enough damage where you can release your arms from this bear hug here, so arms are out, what do you have then? Elbows, and as Lindsay said, ribs. So that's where you can kind of elbow the ribs, donkey kick, stomp, headbutt to the back. These are the types of things where you can make that happen, is using these kind of not your first tier targets or your first tier attacks. But in this situation, that's really all you've got. And then if you can get to the point where you can loosen the arms up, you might be able to run, sprint, get away. If you can't quite get the grip out, the very least, try to see if you can turn yourself around. So that then you'd be facing your attacker. You can actually see your targets. If you're facing your attacker and you're in close range, you've got knees to the groin. If your hands are free, you could really do anything. You could smash them in the ears. You could poke them in the eye. So at the very least, try to see if you can wiggle yourself to face your attacker. At the very most, see if you can actually get those arms to dislodge enough so you can take off. All right, so I just wanted to cover that because that's kind of a situation where it's an exception where we are looking for targets that are the ones I didn't cover before. But so that's kind of the basics on self-defense today. Like I said, I can go more and more into all different types of grabs, different types of holds, weapons defenses. I could be here, I could have you guys here for an 8-hour seminar, but really just the bare basics to remember are try to be aware, try to prevent a situation before it happens, being aware of your surroundings, using those strategies that we talked about. Do the steps where, we de-escalate if we can. We have to determine if it's worth fighting, if it is a good decision to fight, or just to kind of give them keys, give them a wallet, give them a cell phone, and hope they go away. And then the main 3 steps are avoid fighting if at all possible. Once you decide to fight, do not stop until you can safely get away. And then the third is run when you can, run, make lots of noise, call the police. And hopefully using these simple strategies will keep you a little bit safer. Even if you learn one thing that you can take with you in your daily life, I feel like it's a win. And also I'm going to send you guys the link to the recording after this. So if you do want to brush up on your self-defense from time to time, I'm actually going to put this on YouTube. So that way it's always going to be accessible. So as long as you have the link, you can access it. And I encourage you guys, if you know women, daughters or aunts or anybody, moms who could benefit from learning this stuff, send the link to them. They don't have to pay anything for it. I just want to make sure that they have the information that they need to be safer. So that's kind of all I got today. What questions do you guys have, if any? And don't be afraid to drop in the chat. Or also, it's a small enough session where if you do want to just unmute and ask a question, that's fine too. I'm fine with that too. Hang out while people are typing. I also want to thank you guys for bearing with me while my dog was having a little tantrum throughout the seminar. I don't know if you could hear him barking, but does not like it when I ignore him. All right. Well, if anybody has questions, I'll hang out for another few minutes. If you guys are all set, what are your thoughts about using things like a whistle or mace? Okay, that's a great question, Kelly. So I don't think it can hurt. Definitely can't hurt to have those things on you. Whistle, mace. But keep in mind, you have to get at them. So it's not a replacement for learning how to use your hands or your legs to defend yourself. It is an additional resource. So it's kind of like why they teach police officers to do defensive combat rather than just handing them a gun and saying, there you go. You have to be able to adapt to situations where you can't get at those things. So I know some people have kind of questioned me in seminars and said, well, I have my concealed carry permit. Nobody's going to be messing with me because I got a gun. And it's like, well, what happens if that happens? Are you going to be able to say time out, let go of me so I can get my gun out of my purse? Like, no, like your purse is probably dropped on the ground at this point. You're going with it. So while they're great to have, it's not, and I definitely think if you want to carry one, yes, do it by all means, like have it. The other thing too is you always have to have it at the ready. So I don't know about you, but my bag is a hot mess. So sometimes I have trouble finding Tic Tacs quickly enough, let alone a whistle or mace or things like that. So if I'm sitting there shuffling through my bag, I can't be like, one moment, I'm going to mace you, but wait for me to find the mace. They're not gonna wait for that. So you have to have it at the ready. So if you're walking to your car, get in the habit of having your whistle in your hand or having the mace like down by your pocket, in your pocket, by your side, always. And you have to do it 100% of the time because it's going to be that one time that you don't do it is when you're probably going to need it. So if you're not in a habit of doing it, it's worthless. Another tip that people like to do is take the car keys and put them between their hands and walk like that. So if you need to, you can. And I kind of one time got somebody mad at me going like, oh, technically that's a concealed weapon and that's illegal. And I was like, well, technically mace is illegal in this state too. So basically, like, again, this is that I would rather be okay the next day worrying about litigation than wondering if I should have done that because I could have saved my own life, So that's my stance. I'm not saying you guys should do that. You have to make your own decisions, but that's my way of looking at it. But yeah, so that's kind of my long-winded explanation is they don't hurt to have, but you have to be able to get in a habit of doing it and you have to be able to access it. So if you can't access it, it's pretty much useless anyway. Pepper spray, I'm pretty sure pepper spray is illegal too, but guess what's not illegal is little travel size hairsprays. So yeah, so hey, you know, you go to Target and you can get yourself a self-defense weapon. But yeah, so that's something where if you do get discovered with it in your purse, nobody's going to arrest you over it. So yeah. All right. So what other questions you guys have? And if you guys don't have questions, like, you can hop off. It's been great having you all on here. I'll hang out for a few more minutes in case anybody does have more questions or scenarios or things that we didn't talk about that they just want to kind of go through. But yeah. Pretty good. More questions. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Yeah, the circle. Yeah, it's just identifying. I think we as women overthink. Are we being paranoid? And is this ridiculous? You know, and this is just one trick you can do to kind of, it's not going to take you any longer than like 5-10 minutes to do it. And it just kind of gives you that peace of mind is, am I really being paranoid? Is this person really following me? Because I'm sure you don't want to like drive into a police station if you're not quite sure if someone's following you or not, and just like make everybody, you know, get up and check. And although all police officers will tell you, they'll be much more reassured if you do that and it's nothing, then you don't do that and it was something. So never feel like you're wasting the police's time. Never, that's what they're there, is to keep us safe. So yeah, definitely take advantage of, if you feel unsafe for whatever reason, don't be afraid to be paranoid. Don't be afraid to inconvenience somebody else because you feel like there's something going on that needs addressing. So definitely, but yeah, those little tips that kind of make it easier for us as women to kind of make peace with the fact that we do actually need to get somebody involved at this point. I think it's a helpful tip, you know. Cool. Anything else, ladies? And this stuff isn't just for women either. I mean, men, you could share it with sons, you can share it with anybody you feel it would benefit. You know, this isn't just I know it's a women's self-defense because usually we tend to be the victims of these things, but it definitely is true for young men, young boys, you know, whoever would need this kind of information. No problem. All right, everybody. Well, if that's it, if you think of questions that you didn't get to ask today, like I said, I'm gonna send you all an email. It's gonna include a recording of this session. Share that with anybody. It's going to have more information about how you can continue to donate to Brittany with her recovery, more ways to donate, if you want to write cards, if you want to share on your Facebook pages and things like that. So I'm going to send that out, and you're going to have my contact info. So if you do, hi, Brittany, there's Brittany. Hi, how you doing? Cool. So yeah, so there's Brittany, and I'm so glad I got to actually meet you on the web.
Yes, thank you for everything, honestly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's my honor. And then when you're all better, maybe you can come kickbox with us a little bit, you know?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So yeah, so you'll have my contact info. So if you do want to find more ways to contribute or help, I'll put that on there too. If you have more questions, follow up with me. But you guys were really fantastic today. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'll be in touch soon with all your extras.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Problem. Have a great day, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.